Okay, so welcome to part 2 of our advent calendar crochet along. For this part of the video, we're going to be putting our pieces together, making our pockets, and making 2 of the ornaments. So to start with, what you're going to need, of course, is your color of your yarn that matches your tabs, because we're going to sew those on first. And of course, a pair of scissors, yarn needle, a measuring tape, and then later we're going to need our hook again. Still going to be using the same size hook, the 5.0 millimeter hook. So all right, well, let's get started here. Okay, so to put the tabs on, you're gonna find the top side of your background piece here and take one of your tabs, and we're gonna measure. And we're going to put it right on the edge there of our piece, and we're going to measure in 1 inch from that side. Well, and that's where we want to start our tab. So we're going to take our tab and we're going to sort of fold it in half. It's not going to stay in half all the way until we get it sewed on there, but we're going to fold it like this, and then we're going to attach it. So to attach it, we're going to take our blue yarn and we're just going to cut off a long piece of string, a long piece of yarn, and we're gonna thread that through our yarn needle. Like that. Now, the way that I'm gonna do this is I'm actually gonna go ahead and bring my yarn. I'm going to come through the back, and I'm going to bring my yarn through it, just like this. I'm going to pull it all the way through until I have just a little bit of tail there, and then I'm going to tie a knot just to fasten it onto our piece here, just like that. That way it doesn't come loose. Okay, and then we can weave that tail in later. All right, so we have our piece here that we've measured. So my 1 inch mark is about right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my measuring tape, and then I'm going to come up right through the tops of those stitches right there. I'm going to come up through the bottom side of it and pull the yarn through, all the yarn. And then I'm going to take the top side of my tab piece, and I'm going to go through those very first stitches right there on that top edge, and then I'm going to pull that yarn through, just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to go back down through from the front to the back. So I'm going to go down through there, down through there, through that second stitch there. Pull that yarn all the way through. Then I'm going to turn it over a little so I can see. And then I'm going to just run my needle through the back side of that back piece there. And then pull that yarn all the way through that side. My yarn's hung. Okay. And then, yeah, so just pull it all the way through, just like that. And you're just going to do this, going back and forth, just like this. And once you get, once you get on down just a little ways, trying to get this yarn situated here. It's going to be a little fumbly, but once you get it all situated, you should just be able to work it through all 3 layers all at one time, just like that. And you're just gonna, oops, you're just gonna do that all the way down your piece until you get it sewed all the way across. So I'll let you work on that, and I will catch up with you at the end. Okay, so once you have your tabs sewn all the way across, you're just going to take your yarn needle on the back there and weave it in back through some of those stitches, just like this. Pulling it through. Careful not to get it too tight. Then run it back again. Just so that none of that will come loose. You can even do it one more time. Back the other way again. And then cut your yarn, the excess off of it, weave in your other tail over here, and once you have it hanging up, it'll lay, you know, flatter. But now we have a tab that our rod will go through. So you're gonna need to get you a rod of some sort that'll fit down in that hole there. So now you'll just do the same thing on the other side. You'll measure in 1 inch and then sew your tab across, and then you'll have both tabs sewn on. So once you have your tabs sewn on, I have both of mine sewn on here now. Then we're gonna sew on the tree. Now, for the tree, you're gonna measure from the top here, right about there, and you want it to be centered. So I'm just going right here to where my 2 tabs meet. And you want it to be about, you want to start at about 2.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take my hook And I'm just going to kind of place it right there for right now, so that I'll know where I want to start my tree. And then I'm going to get me a long strand of yarn, here to sew on my tree. And I'm going to use the same color that my tree is, and we're going to sew on our tree. Now, the way that I'm going to do this, I'll move all that out of the way, is I'm going to line that point up right there where I put that hook in at. Gosh, sorry I bumped the camera. I'm going to take my hook back out, and then I'm going to hold it with my hand there. And underneath, right here, I can feel where my tree is there. So I'm just going to stick my needle right through that stitch there. And you see how it came through onto the tree? So I'm just going to pull all of that yarn. Sorry, keep bumping the camera. I'm trying to work around it. So I'm going to pull all of that yarn through until there's just a little left. Oh, not that little. Leave about a good enough amount to be able to weave in. So I'm going to do like that. Okay, so then we're going to flatten it out really good. Make sure it's straight. And then I'm just going to go back down through there, just like that, and pull it back through. I'm going to hold that yarn in the back there while I'm pulling that through, so I can snug it tight enough that it's going to hold it down, but also not pull that yarn through. So again, I'm just going to hold my tree to that background, and I can feel about where it's at. So I'm just going to poke my needle up through there and then pull it back through. And we're just going to do this all the way around the edge of our tree, sewing it to our background piece there. Just back and forth. Just like that. So, just back and forth, up and down, just like that. So, you go ahead and continue sewing all the way around your tree, sewing it down to your background piece, and I will catch back up with you right here at the point. Okay, so I have finished going around my entire tree, sewing it to my background. Now, so once you finish doing that, you're going to have these two pieces back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie a knot in the two like that. I'm going to tie it a couple of times 2 or 3 times, just like that. And then I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to cut that off. And I'm just going to leave that so that it won't come undone. Now, also just want to say that, you know, these sewing ways that I'm doing is strictly up to you. You can do it the same way that I'm doing it, or if you prefer to do it a different way, you're more than welcome to do it a different way. This is just the way that I chose to do it, but if you have a different way that you want to do it, you are more than welcome. So now we're going to do the same thing with our star. We're just gonna sew down our star, just kind of line it up there to where the tip of the star is right there, and then kind of get your points just like that. And you can pin these down also if you need to keep them, to hold them steady while you're sewing them. So but I'm gonna sew my star down the same way I sewed my tree down. I'm just gonna be going through all the thicknesses. So go ahead and sew that star down, and then I will see you when I finish sewing mine down. Okay, I've finished sewing on my star. Now, just like before, I'm going to turn it over to the back, and I'm just going to take these 2 pieces and tie them in a few knots so that they don't come undone. Don't have to be super, super tight with it. And then just snip that off. And now, that's what our canvas piece looks like so far, with our tabs sewn on, our tree, and our star. So, now we're going to sew on our buttons. Now, you can use yarn to sew these buttons on with, or you can use just regular needle and thread, whatever you prefer. I'm gonna use yarn to sew them on with. I just feel like that it'll hold through the stitches better with the yarn. So we're gonna sew the buttons on now. Now, to sew the button on, I am going to use some white yarn, and I'm just gonna snip a little piece of it off, and then I have my button. I'm going to take my needle and thread it on. Ugh, it split my yarn. Let's try the other end. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to just randomly place, well, I'm actually just going to let me get this camera situated here. I'm gonna randomly poke my needle up through my tree. And then I'm going, oh no, I'm going to have to find a bigger button because my needle won't fit over my button. So I'm going to poke my needle randomly through my tree, and then I'm going to take my button and put it over my needle, and then pull my yarn through it. But I'm going to make sure that a little piece stays out in the back to knot it on there. So I'm just going to go back down through there. I'm going to hold this piece just like that, and then I'm going to tie it just like that. Okay, so now we have a button on there. So you're going to randomly place all of your buttons on your Christmas tree, and when you have them all on there, you should have a total of 24 buttons on your Christmas tree. Don't place them too close together because your ornaments are gonna hang on these buttons. So make sure you space them out a good little bit of piece apart. So, but yeah, go ahead and finish putting your buttons on, and next we're going to start making the pockets to go on there. So go ahead and finish sewing on your buttons, and I will see you to make the pockets. Now to make the pockets, we're going to do the same thing that we've been doing for the background piece and the tabs and everything. We're just going to make our slip knot. Here, let me zoom it in some. So you can see what I'm doing. So and then we're gonna chain 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then we're going to skip the first chain and single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then we're going to single crochet all the way across, and at the end you'll have 8 single crochets. That's the last one. So you should have 8 single crochets all the way across. So then you're just going to chain 1 and turn. Get my tail out of there. And then you're going to single crochet all the way back again. So you're just going to keep doing this, single crocheting back and forth until you have 24 pockets of your 6 different colors, okay? It's colors, whatever colors you have chose for your, for B, I, J, K, L, and N. You're going to make 4 each of those 6 colors, and they need to be 3-inch pockets, so 3 inches tall. So you'll crochet back, single crochet back and forth until you have a pocket 3 inches, and you'll need to do that until you have 24 for each of the 6 different colors, and I will see you then. Now, once you have finished all of your pocket pieces, then we are going to embroider the numbers 1 through 24 on each one. Well, we're going to put one number on each pocket piece. So I'm going to get me a piece of my background color piece of yarn and thread it onto my needle. And then to make the one, you're just going to kind of come up through the stitches like that, leaving you a tail out, and then kind of go up that way a piece like that, and then come down and then go back up there in that same hole at the top. And don't pull it too tight, because you want to be able to see the number through there. So, and then you just come down just a little more like this, and then go back in up there to connect it. Like that. And again, and back up through there. Now in the diagram, the one is just like this, but I'm actually going to come at the bottom like this and do it where there's a line at the bottom like this right here, just to kind of give it a little more definition that it is a 1, and you can kind of differentiate between the 1 and the 7 a little better. So just like that. And then there's my 1. And you want to kind of try to center it on there as best you can. Just like that. So then you could just, well, I have stitched over my piece of yarn that was in the back somehow. But you can just snip you a piece of this here, and then just kind of weave this tail back and forth, making sure not to go through this to the front so that you can't see, but just you can try to weave it in through some of this if possible, but just weave that in so that you can't see it, or you can tie a knot in it, however you want to do it to close that off. But you're going to do this for each one of your pocket pieces. You're just going to embroider the number on there, 1 through 24, and you'll have 24 pocket pieces left when you get through. And then we're going to sew those onto our background piece. So go ahead and put the numbers on all of your pocket pieces, and I will see you in a minute. Okay, now we're going to sew on our pockets to our background. So the first thing that we need to do is measure from the bottom up, and it needs to be about 1.25 inches from the bottom. So about right here on mine. Then you come in 1 inch from the side. So right there is where my corner pocket would need to be. Or my bottom pocket, my first bottom pocket. So we'll leave that right there. Then we're going to take us some yarn, same color as our pocket. And then thread that onto our needle. And now we're going to sew this on there the same way we sewed the Christmas tree and the star. So we're gonna lift up, feel our way through, and you want to try to get up in that corner there as best as you can, and then pull it through. And then, of course, leave a tail back there. And then you're just going to sew this on there on these 3 sides here. You're going to leave that part, top part, open so that the ornaments can fit down in there. So, just going to sew it on there. Making sure to keep it straight. Just like this. Just sewing around those edges. Okay, so just continue on sewing all the way around on those 3 sides, and I'll see you in a minute. Now, when you get through sewing on your piece, you're going to want to tie your yarn off. So the way that I do this is I'm just gonna pick up just a little bit of a stitch there in my background color, and then I'm just gonna wrap my yarn around a few times and pull through, and it creates a knot right there at the back of the piece, so that it won't come undone. And you can do the same thing with this tail over here. Then you just snip it off, and you have your first sewn on pocket to put the ornaments in. So when you get ready to put your next pocket on, you're gonna leave 1 inch in between each pocket. So you would need to measure out 1 inch and then line up your next pocket right there beside it, just like that, and then sew it on just like that, and then you'll put them on all the way across. You'll have 6 pockets going across each row, and you'll have 4 rows of pockets. So go ahead and sew on all your pockets, and we will get started with the first 2 ornaments of our crochet along. Now the first ornament of the crochet along pattern is going to be the wreath, and each ornament you'll make 2 of each ornament. So the first one, we're going to get our color C, and for me that's this hunter green, and we're going to make our slip knot. Let me zoom in a little. Okay, and then we're going to chain 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, and then we're going to, make sure not to twist the chain. We're going to join to that very first chain, and then we're going to slip stitch just like that. All right, and then we're going to chain 2. Oops. And then we're going to go right back into that same place that we just stitched into and do a half double crochet. Actually, we're going to do 2 half double crochets in that same place. Okay, and then we're gonna half double crochet in each, put 2 half double crochets in each one of the chains, and when you finish you'll have 16 half double crochets. So continue along around this ring, putting 2 half double crochets in each chain spot. And I will catch up with you back at the beginning. Now when you get back to the beginning and you went all the way around, we're going to skip over this chain 2 that we initially began with, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that very first half double crochet. Just like that. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to put 2 single crochets right back into that same spot. And then we're going to place 2 single crochets in every stitch around all the way back to the beginning, and when we get there we'll have 32 single crochets. So go ahead and single crochet all the way back around, putting 2 single crochets in each stitch, and I'll meet you back at the beginning. Now I've gotten all the way back around and I have my 32 single crochets. Now I'm just going to slip stitch to that very first single crochet. Just like that. Then I'm going to fasten off. So I'm going to cut my yarn and tie that off. Now, you're going to need 2 of these to make the wreath. Now, I've already made my other one, but we're going to be putting them together like so. So, take a moment to go ahead and make your other one, and then catch up with me to put these together. Okay, now that we have our 2 pieces, we're going to take a piece of yarn and we're going to sew together the center of our wreaths. So thread our yarn needle. And then we're going to, okay, so these are both of the right sides of my wreaths. So we're going to flip one and then take the one that's still on the right side and place it on top of our other wreath. And then we are going to simply turn over and go through one side here and then go through the other side on the other side of the wreath and then pull it through, leaving a little bit of a tail there so that we can tie it off once we get around. So we're just going to go through both sides of our wreath back and forth, sewing these centers together just like this. Just like that, going back and forth. And then once you've gotten all the way back around, you can just take the 2 pieces and tie a few knots there. just to tie that yarn so that it doesn't come undone. Just like that. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, and then you can snip both pieces just like that, or you can weave them in however you want to do it. Okay, now we're going to get our color D, and mine is white, and we're going to take our hook and just anywhere on the wreath, you're going to stick your hook in through one side and match it up to the other side, just like that. Then we're going to join our white color, or D color, and then we're going to do a chain one, like that. Then we're going to go right back in that same place, and we're going to do a single crochet. We're going to single crochet our wreaths together. So once you get all the way around, you should have 32 single crochets. So this darker colored yarn, I know, is harder to see, but we're just going to go into every stitch on both sides, placing a single crochet in there. And then we're going to put some stuffing inside of our wreath as we go. So I'm going to put a few stitches in here, about halfway around, and then I'm going to start putting some stuffing in. So go ahead and continue on putting your single crochets together, stitching your wreath, your two sides of your wreath together until you get about halfway around, and I will catch up with you there. Now I've gotten about halfway around, so I'm going to pull my loop up, and then I'm going to go ahead and start putting in some of my stuffing. And it says to lightly stuff, so I'm just going to get it started in there. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and just kind of poke it on around. Just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to take a little more. I'm going to go and poke it in on this other side over here. Take my scissors just to help it out. Just stuff it in there. Just like that. Don't want to stuff it too full. Make sure you get enough in there. Then I'm going to continue on stitching my wreath together. And I'm just going to do a few stitches and then poke some more stuffing in. A few stitches and poke some more stuffing in. So go ahead and continue on with that. And I will meet you back around at the beginning. Okay, I've got all the way back around to the beginning. And then I'm just going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. But I'm not going to fasten off right here. I'm going to, we've got to make the loop. So I'm going to chain 6. And then I'm going to go right back in that same single crochet again and do another, whoops, do another slip stitch. Okay, let's try that again. Get in there. All right. My yarn don't want to stay on my hook. One more time. Okay. Then we're going to slip, stitch it. Careful not to split the yarn. Okay. Just like that. And then you have your loop. Now we're going to fasten off the white yarn or the color D yarn and weave in that tail. But now we have our loop there. Okay. Now we're going to get our B yarn and we're going to make the bow for the wreath that's going to go at the bottom of the bow. So to do that, we're going to chain 30. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And 30. Now we're going to fasten that off. Just like that. And then we're going to make this chain and we're going to tie it in a bow. So I'm going to make a loop, make another loop, and then leaving a hole open there, I'm going to just make a bow like so. Just like that. Like that. And you have your bow. Now we are going to attach our bow to the wreath. So we don't need very much yarn here, but we're just going to snip us a piece of yarn and get our yarn needle. Thread it on there. Now, so what I do is I just come right up and make sure that my loop is up here at the top, and I just follow it down, and then I'm going to come up from the back side here. Try to come up right there towards the middle, and then I'm going to take and just kind of run that needle through the back of that loop there, just like that, and pull it through everything. And then I'm going to feed my needle back down right next to where I came up at. Just like this. And then turn it over and give it a little pull. And then I'm just going to tie this in a knot to secure it, just like that. I'm going to do a couple just to make sure that it won't come undone. Maybe one more. And then I'm just going to trim off this excess, just like that. And then you have your bow. Now, as for the tails at the bottom here, you can weave them back up through your bow if you want to. I just tie a knot at the end and then cut the string off. Because, I mean, it's not a toy, so it's not really like anything's gonna be playing with it or anything. So, and I mean, you can tie a couple of knots if you want. So I just do it like that. And then I'll just snip off that excess, because that's not coming undone. So just snip it off like that. Do the same thing on the other side over there, and you can straighten your bow up and make it look all pretty, just like that. But there's our wreath. And remember, you're going to need to make 2 of these. See, here's the other one that I had made. So remember, go ahead and make your other one, and then come back for the snowman. So now we're going to make our snowman. And to do that, we're going to make our slip knot and chain 2. 1, 2. Now, we're going to skip this first chain, and we're going to put 8 single crochets all into this second chain here. Okay, once you get 8 single crochets in there, then we're going to slip stitch to that very first single crochet to join. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to put 1 single crochet right back in that same place where we joined, and then we're going to put 1 single crochet in every single stitch around. So you'll end with 8 single crochets. And you're going to do this for this round and 2 more rounds to form the head of our snowman. So go ahead and do that, and I will catch back up with you. Once you've finished crocheting around, putting 1 single crochet in every stitch around, you're going to have a total of 4 rows of the single crochets around. Now we're going to work on the body. So we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to put 2 single crochets in every stitch. So right back in that same stitch, 2 single crochets, and then 2 in every single stitch. So at the end, you'll have 16 single crochets around. You're going to continue around, putting 2 single crochets in every stitch around, and I'll catch up with you back at the beginning. Once you get all the way back around, we're gonna join to the top of that first single crochet with a slip stitch. Just like that. And then we're gonna chain 1. We're gonna go right back in there and do 1 single crochet, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and you'll have 16 single crochets when you get back around. And you're gonna do this for a total of 4 rows, including this row. So do those 4 rows, and I will catch up with you at the end of the 4th row. Once you've completed all of those rows, or rounds, should I say, you're going to join with a slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 1, and this time we're gonna do a single crochet together. So we're gonna go in that first stitch and draw up a loop, and then we're gonna go into the next stitch and draw up a loop. And we'll have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're gonna yarn over and pull through all 3. So we have single crocheted these first 2 stitches together. Now we're gonna do that a total of 7 more times, all the way around, just like that. So go ahead and complete this all the way around until you get back here, and I will meet you back here. Now when you get all the way back around, we're going to join to that very first, where we single crocheted those first 2 together. We're going to join to the top of that with a slip stitch. Then we're going to leave a long tail, and we're going to cut our yarn. Just like that. And then we're going to fasten this off. So we're going to tie that off right there. And there's going to be a hole, and that's for us to stuff our snowman, and then we'll use the long tail to sew up the bottom. But first, we're going to put on our face and our buttons, I guess you could say. They call the buttons for the snowman. So I'm going to get my black yarn and my orange yarn, and I'm going to cut off a somewhat long strand of the black yarn. Won't need very much, but then I'm going to thread it onto my needle, just like that. Okay, now the back of our snowman, you can see where we joined. Oh, the back, you can see here where we joined, and it leads down to our tail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just flip it over to the very opposite side, and I'm going to go up through the bottom of the snowman, and I'm going to place my needle in. I'm going to come through a stitch right like that, and I'm going to pull that yarn through, and then I'm going to go not in the exact same spot, but just like right up under it. I'm going to poke my needle back down through there, and then I'm going to come back out the bottom of my snowman like this. Just like that. And when I snug the eye down, I'm not going to pull it really, really tight. I'm just going to snug it down a little bit. That way it won't pull the stitch in too much. So then I'm going to go back in and go to the other side of the eye, or the other side of the face, should I say. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to come through there, and then a little bit below it, go right back down through the bottom of my snowman. Just like that. And now our snowman has two eyes. Now, while I have my black yarn, I'm also going to go ahead and do his little buttons or whatever. And they're basically done the same way. You just go up, find a good spot for him, for it where you want his button, his top button to be. Pull through your yarn, go back down in through there, just like that. Pull it through, but not too tight like I just did, because you want it to be able to be seen. So just like that. Then go back in just a little ways down up under it. Just like that. And then back down. to make the second little button there. Now you can kind of flip him inside out. Just run your needle under there just a little, under those stitches, and give your yarn a couple of turns around your needle. Just like that. And pull it down to knot it and secure it. Then you can just snip that off. And you have your eyes and your little buttons done. Now, when I did my knot, it pulled that bottom one a little tight, so I'm just going to tug it back out like that. So, all right, now we're gonna cut us a piece of the orange, not very long, just a short piece, and we're gonna do his carrot nose. A lot like we just did the eyes. We're just going to pick a good place to come up through, just like that. Pull that through. Go back down in there. Then we're gonna come over to the side of the face, about right there, and come back up through there. And then I'm going to go back down like that. But then I'm going to go back through again in that same place right here. I'm going to come back up through that. Oh. Put my yarn back on my needle. And then I'm going to go back down through there just so that it is a little thicker and looks more like a carrot nose. Just like that. Now we can tie that off and start stuffing our snowman. Now we're going to take some stuffing and just put it down in through there and push it all the way to the head. You're going to want some in the head. Not too much, just get enough in there that he looks like a good old fat snowman. Okay, about like that. And then now we're going to get our yarn needle and thread up this tail. and we're just going to weave it back and forth through the tops of these stitches, just like this, and close up the bottom of our snowman. So as we go around, it will somewhat cinch our bottom hole up here. So we're just going to go around doing like this until our hole's all closed up. Just like this. Okay. And then I like to come across the bottom and just go through both sides just to kind of close it up even better, and then go back the other way, and this kind of weaves your yarn tail as you're doing that. Then you can just fasten that off. And there's our little snowman. Now we're going to add the loop to the top. So we're going to turn our snowman around to the back, and I'm just going to put my hook up through the back of there like that. And then I'm going to take my yarn and pull it back through just like that, and I'm gonna just chain. We're going to chain 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then I'm gonna go back down in there again and come up through that hole at the top. I'm going to slip stitch to attach my loop, just like that. Then I'm going to cut my yarn and fasten that off, and then you can weave in your tails, but then you have your loop at the back of your snowman. And remember, you need 2 of these snowmen. So that concludes part 2 of our Advent Calendar Crochet Along. So I will see you back for part 3. Bye.